Welcome to Utter Hoops. I am so excited to be here today. We are going to be talking about one of the best experiences in basketball I've had in my life at Sports Business Classroom at Summer League in Las Vegas. And also, as a first for this channel, I'm bringing on a guest for the first time. He is a basketball fan, a soccer fan, a Wildcats fan, a former Sun Devil, but still my friend, Dr. Frank Schwebel. Frank, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Happy to be here. Happy to be a guest on the show.
And I really appreciate it. Like I said, we're just kind of getting started with a lot of things here, and I know you have done a great job of at least feigning interest in this experience that I had. I felt like it was the biggest. Like, let me tell you about my fantasy team ever, and we're going to kind of get to that in the second half of this, the mock practicum exercise where we did. I had the privilege of acting as the New York Knicks GM, but really before we kind of get to that exercise, I wanted to hit a little bit about what is Sports Business Classroom, the experience that I had to have, and really the recommendation that I have. I told you I'm going to try to get you to do this someday. Maybe not this coming year, but in the future. I think that it would probably be a great experience for you.
Absolutely. That sounds great. I will say that despite it maybe being that fantasy story that everyone likes to talk about, I was reeling as a Suns fan when you told me about this trade. So spoiler alert, the Suns are involved, but looking forward to talking more about all of this.
For sure. So what is Sports Business Classroom? So it's been a little bit difficult to explain to people, but you have NBA Summer League where you have players on the fringe of the NBA trying to get in, coaches on the fringe coaching these NBA teams in Summer League, officials that are maybe G League or college officials that are trying to make their way to the NBA. This is the front office version of that, right? These are a bunch of people who are trying to make their way into the NBA front offices, and I'll kind of run through. Sports Business Classroom has a bunch of different programs. It is run organized primarily by Eric Pincus, but Bobby Marks is our lead instructor. We had people like Seth Partnow, Stephen Alves, EJ Kushner, and Yossi Goslin and Keith Smith. I mean, I could keep going and going with the amazing instructors that we had. Bobby Marks teaches CBA mastery class through Sports Business Classroom, but what we're talking about is this business of basketball immersive experience, a week long uh, adventure in Las Vegas, and basically you could apply to be in athlete representation, so people who wanting to be agents, league salary cap. That's what I chose to do scouting video analytics or media and broadcast. I guess I should say on the media and broadcast, we had people like Jay Adonde and Howard Beck. So I mean, it was just an amazing group there, and that's the instructors, not even the like special speakers that came in to speak with us here. So I know, Frank, that I kind of have talked your ear off already about this, but for the benefit of everyone here, and maybe a little bit removed from it, as you had some more time to think about it. Kind of what were your thoughts in my explanation? I know I was texting you throughout the week. I got to visit with you and talk a little bit more. But what kind of comes to your mind about this, or questions that I can kind of answer?
Well, actually, the first one and maybe the least interesting one we haven't touched on, this networking one. Is that a different uh, like track of its own?
Networking, as far as like building relationships with other people.
I think it's a networking job as like resume writing, something like that, or is that just part of the whole experience?
So this was part of the whole
There we
experience.
go.
So these top four
Got
here
it.
are majors. You could apply to be in one of the majors, right? All of these kind of filter into basketball, or at least these top three, top,
Mhm.
league salary cap, scouting video analytics, kind of go into basketball operations, network jobs and resume writing. So we did have also Jeff Bellinger there, who's a professor from USC that was teaching us about like what our resumes should look like, what when we're reaching out to people, what tactics we should use, interview skills, things like that. So there was more than just learning about the NBA. It was really about trying to break into the industry, which is extremely difficult. I mean, there is a lot of demand for these positions. I one of the things that was really awesome for me, there was 140 students, and you did have to apply. You had to submit a resume, cover letter, and not everyone got in. So there is a threshold for this experience, and I would say 95% of the people there were 95th percentile, like, level of capability, intelligence, drive. So, positivity, that was the other thing, but just all week long, everyone there just extremely relentlessly positive, pulling people forward. So, one of the cool things to me is, I'm gonna be able to watch some of the other people who were my fellow students there that I mean, I could pick out a few that I'm like guaranteed that they're gonna make it because you just watch them and they just shine every step of the way. So that's really the networking part. Building your network of people from the students or um, from industry. I did get some contacts of some of the speakers there that I've been able to have a back and forth with since I left. Um, and then listening to all the speakers, we can kind of we've talked a little bit, but we can talk about some of the speakers we had there. It was really an amazing set list.
That's awesome. Maybe bigger picture. Sorry, I was like, is this a track? Because that'd be really interesting. It's like seems like very job
Sure.
specific,
Yeah.
but it makes sense that it's just a part
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the whole experience.
Yeah.
Um, but I am curious. So I mean, I know I've known you forever, since we are about 11 years old or so,
Right. Yeah.
and you've played basketball for a long time. You've been a coach. What I mean, what part of you is like, hey, I'm thinking front office stuff now. Like, why this, and why this program too?
That's a great question. So I did a about me video. Is one of the previous YouTube videos that we've did. So right, I grew up. My dad was a high school basketball coach. Grew up playing. Was a decent high school player. Didn't decide to play in college. Went into coaching. Coached for 14 years at the high school level. Um, but the front office stuff is stuff that a lot of what I've done in my work does connect to this. One of the speakers was Rachel Baker, who's the general manager for Duke men's basketball. We also had opportunity to do a one-on-one sit down with one person, and I got to sit down with Wes Wilcox, former Atlanta Hawks GM, and now the GM for the University of Utah men's basketball program. And I'm really thinking that the college landscape is going to explode here. You look at college staffs. We talked about the managers. College staffs used to be pretty restricted to like one head coach and three assistant coaches. That's grown a lot. You've got a lot of different positions in these coaching staffs. But I think the front offices you're going to start seeing really built out as well, a full video analytics, and we'll see where the college landscape goes. It just would not surprise me if a decade from now we're talking about something that has been collectively bargained in a real salary cap at college as well, which would make kind of these front office positions at the college level explode. So I just think in terms of opportunity, this probably makes a lot more sense for me.
Yeah, it's about to blow up. That makes sense. And there's probably some advantage on the school side of things if you're ahead of the curve, right? Like if you're ready as soon as they say, "Hey, here's a cap. We need this, that, and that position." Oh, we already have them. Great. Versus those who are kind of scrambling, like, I didn't see this coming. We got no one.
Oh, absolutely. And I think on the analytics side, they have some of that. I did one of the the instructors there works for a third party company that some college programs contract with, essentially. So they may be outsourcing it at this time, or you might have one or two people internally and outsourcing some of the things as well. So I think on the analytics side, but having no salary cap, I'm not sure. From a game theory perspective, I'm pretty interested in, if we're studying other people that we're recruiting against, what kind of budget do they have? What do I would expect them to be able to use when I'm team building? How, for fantasy talk, do we use kind of the stars and scrubs type model where I'm going to spend a lot of my money on my top guys, or am I better off building depth? Even though there's no salary cap, there is, some budgetary restrictions on this. And yes, the schools can pay right now, but now you're asking boosters kind of backfill some of that money. So, we'll see where all the NIL stuff settles at, but you're asking the same people for money in multiple different areas. There is a limit on that, and each school is different. But I think that there is definitely some strategy that could be applied to identifying who you're recruiting against and where you can kind of find advantages based on how people are using their money. I'm not sure if that's something that's being done at a high level right now.
Yeah, it seems likely to be an edge. And those are the things, right? Carving out the little spaces that people haven't figured out at this point, right? Like you said, if at best people are probably outsourcing some of their analytics. Maybe they have one student. I mean, in my life, I do some machine learning stuff, so I say nerd lightly and feel like it's a nice term. You might have a machine learning nerd who's like, "Hey, we figured out, we looked at this. It looks like you really want to go depth over having like a strong starting five, and you can have an advantage for a few seasons.
Yeah.
But then once there's more structure in place, you might need something more serious going on than just like, I don't know, basically a
Yeah.
fan helping out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious, of those top 4 there, if you were to do this program, does one of those stick out to you as the one you would be most interested in doing?
Probably the easiest
Oh, that's
translation
fun.
to my job would be analytics.
Yeah.
Um, I I don't actually, the sport I watch the most of is soccer,
Yep.
and I couldn't break down video for you. I on the high level I kind of understand what's going on, but I struggle. I've Soccer's the only sport where I've taken that like full field view where you can see everyone, and it my brain doesn't compute it. I've never like trained myself to do that for any sport, and so that would be a struggle. I think there are sports where I might know enough to ask meaningful questions that you could analyze, but my stat skills, while probably better than the average person, probably way behind someone who's like actually a machine learning expert.
Yeah, I think you're undercutting yourself a little bit. And I do think, as someone who works in the AI space, I think the machine learning and AI stuff is going to get a lot easier. And I think the thing that you hit on there, maybe without even really realizing it, is the ask the right questions part. That's going to become a lot more valuable. If you have a baseline ability to do coding, some of the LLM coding I just think that's another industry that is going to look completely different, not 10 years from now, but maybe 1 year from now or 2 years from now. So I think you're undercutting it. And the other thing I would say is cross pollination of sports is another really interesting area here. There's people who work, I think, in analytics and basketball. They're constantly studying what they do for football, what soccer teams do as well. And there's been a lot of talk about basketball kind of shifting from a strongest link to a weakest link sport. Soccer is pretty well known as being a weakest link sport, so there may be actually more than you realize at this point that studying of things from soccer, from strategy, from that could be applicable. And I think a different perspective like that would be something really valuable to this. So that's kind of, I thought scouting video and analytics would be the side that you would be most interested in as well. So nothing too surprising there.
Yeah, it really is fascinating. I mean, the crossover. I think of it having played these sports a lot growing up. Not so much these days, but you can. I remember if I was playing a lot of soccer and I'd go play basketball, there were some defensive things I could take to the court that would translate. And I think it's the same thing just in terms of strategy, like you're saying. And I do think I know. Well, I don't know if you saw this week the guy that I should probably know his name. I don't. The guy who runs that five. The did you
Owen
see his
Phillips.
post this
Yeah,
week?
signed with the
Owen Phillips.
Nuggets.
Yeah.
He did as
Yep.
well. Yeah, there's been a couple of people that I've been reading pretty religiously that have picked up NBA jobs in the last week. So I mean, very happy for them. One of the
Yes.
things that he said in his goodbye letter, which is what I'm thinking about as well, is like it doesn't necessarily mean that your content has to be great every time, but it needs to be consistent. Just keep putting stuff out.
Totally.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. We'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, he stuck with it for years. I know he worked with the Knicks previously, but then came back to his newsletter and now with a job with the Nuggets. So well deserved, definitely.
And he just asked like the most interesting, arguably fairly quirky questions. He had something recently about like looking at refs and it's looking also like accuracy of challenges that are overturned. How many
Yeah.
refs, like the percentage of refs that overturn their own calls on a challenge? I mean, these are edges that I don't really think teams like people aren't generally thinking about. But like a diehard fan is like, hey, that's kind of interesting. And then he has the knowledge and I guess awareness of these databases to access data like that and the time to say like, I'm going to answer this. Love it. Really entertaining. Really enjoy. They're not your typical questions, right? Like ESPN's got to run kind of your run of the mill articles.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is really cool, really unique. And I think if a team looks at it, they should be like, there's probably an edge to be carved out here. Like we should think about, should we challenge more with certain refs when they're the lead official? I mean, there is an edge there. It's minor. It's probably not even the equivalent of winning a game over the course of a season, but it's not nothing.
Look, there's no more gain to be ground from let's all shoot a bunch of threes, right? The
Right.
analytics have pretty much everyone's caught up to that. So now you're looking for much smaller margins where you can have advantages. And to go back to sportsman's classroom, like there was a lot of people with interesting ideas of things to study, and I go right back to as a former data scientist, the whole idea of like let's collect a whole bunch of data and see what we can get from it is very difficult. That was actually my question to Kenny Atkinson, who was one of the speakers there, because he is pretty analytics focused and talking about the relationship that he has with his analytics group. And the question was, how much of it is them bringing stuff to you versus you bringing questions to them to go answer? And he said it goes both ways, but in the beginning, it was really more of them bringing stuff to him, and he's really realized culturally that that was not sufficient because it still was when you're not involved in the first part of that, it's very hard to have full buy-in to it. So he said that's something that's really improved in even the last 2 or 3 years that he's seen. Is just the coaching staffs are very intertwined with the analytics group and what they're working on.
That's really cool. I almost wonder, like, what is the ideal breakdown of that, right? So in my mind, well, I think of everything in like 20% increments, basically, because that's a day a week, essentially. And if you were to say, hey, 80% of your week is going to be dedicated towards these questions that coaches want you to look into to carve it out. But we'll give you 20% to just kind of noodle around, be like, hey, you've got all this data, you've got probably interesting thoughts about it. And then an opportunity to present that. In my world, it's grants, right? Like if I have an idea and I want to sell it, I write a grant. Like kind of similar here. Hey, I ran these numbers. I think there might be something here, but I want to share it with you. Let me know what you think, and we can do more if you want. That seems really fun.
And that's such a tech industry model as well to try to support innovation. The biggest tech companies do a lot of things like that, where they allow independent. They even not allow. They force independent working time on some of these ideas, and require people to work on things like that. Big, moonshot. Google has their moonshot program. Spotify
Yep.
bets, things like that. And that was another person that I got to speak with. Kind of, he was a speaker, and then I got to talk to him a little bit afterwards. Was Mike Zarin, who is the assistant GM for the Celtics, and talking to him about how front offices are looking more and more like tech firms. He agreed completely that it's the shift has already started that way. Um, Basically, my question was kind of how much is the coordination of coaching, coaching strategy, player development, salary cap, scouting, analytics, like who is doing all of the coordination of those and making sure we're all moving in the same direction? Does that all fall to the GM and assistant GM? And he said, as these groups are getting bigger, you're gonna need people in tech ops that are basically your director of operations, right, for all of these things. And so, of course, that's I'm asking for my own sake. That's the role that I do right now in my job, and I do feel like because I have some experience in coaching, some experience in training, some experience in salary caps, some experience in analytics, it would be something that I would really fit into nicely. But just got to get the foot in the door first. So I'm gonna go ahead and pivot us here to I got a foot in the door of the New York Knicks office front office only by them being assigned to me in the mock practicum exercise that we did. So let me go ahead and explain a little more about that was. So a really cool exercise. Now, again, I should say this was tertiary to the networking and the learning that we were supposed to do, but it was definitely the thing that most people spent the most time on. But there was this exercise that kind of lasted the whole week. Mock trade deadline, mock off season. It essentially lasted from what we said we split from the sacred timeline, right? We created our own universe from this from a certain period. We just said anything else that happens the rest of the week is not part of this. Like you can make those decisions yourself. So like Bradley Beal's buyout and signing, Damian Lillard signing with the Blazers happened at in the week that I was at Sports Business Classroom, um, which was kind of cool to get to watch Bobby Marks exit the room and go call Shams and come back in and tell us something. It was like, Shams just tweeted that. And I was like, yeah, I just told him. So seeing how the sauce is made, pretty darn cool with some of that stuff. But so those things were things that the teams would have had to do themselves. Salary cap and the SVA majors split into front offices. Like I said, I got assigned to the New York Knicks. About 20 teams were represented by students. The rest were represented by alumni. That's something I really hope to do going forward as well. And then the people in the athlete representation major got split into agencies, and then they got assigned players, and they got to draft more players beyond that. But I was surprised, like each agent got about 3 players. As the week went on, more players needed representation. The teams could request it, and it would get randomly assigned to one of the agents because you were looking for players that were free agents right now to sign contracts, people to sign two-way contracts, which the Knicks needed. If you needed players to work on extensions, if you needed players to do things like waive trade bonuses or no trades, that was
So
something that you needed
just
representation for. So yeah,
so
as far as that
just
setup, yeah, ask any questions if you got any for me. Yeah.
well, a question with that. So essentially, the agents serve as the proxy for the players, right? Like they talked to the players and made the best decision for them. Like, hey, yeah, I'm willing to be traded. I'll waive that, that trade kicker,
Yep.
and that's how they incorporated that track.
Yeah, of course, the players were imaginary, but
Yeah,
Saturday, the teams had a time to present all of the decisions they made, but the agents had to step up as well and say, "Here's the people that I represented, and here's what we were able to get for them." They did have to do things that were reasonable for their client.
yeah, that's really interesting. It's a cool way to incorporate everything.
And then in the media and broadcast major, people were basically acting as shams or woes to follow things, try to kind of break news a little bit early, give insights what was happening. We had basically our own little Twitter feed in Discord where they were working. They did interviews throughout the week. There was other things that they got to do as well. They got to do interviews of people who were working summer league, actually, like some of the announcers or support staff that were working in summer league, which was really cool. They got to do some play-by-play, so that they weren't quite as involved in the mock off-season deadline, but they had a lot of other cool things to do as well. So if you wanted to do media and broadcast, they got to do the most different stuff. It was pretty cool to watch that. But
Mhm.
as far as the teams and the agents working together, so officially you couldn't agree to anything between Monday and Thursday. So we started on
Okay.
Sunday, late Sunday night, we got assigned into our teams. We got Monday morning kind of to start cracking. By midday Monday, probably before maybe even before lunch, um, Minnesota and Sacramento had reported by one of the media people a very extensive trade, like I think 5 players and 4 picks involved or something like that. They ended up
Tampering.
they got fined. They got each penalized 1 second round pick, a future second round pick. Unofficially, yeah, people were talking all the time. One of the really cool parts was when you went back to the hotel at night, the lobby there was basically full from about 8:30, maybe 9 p.m. Many nights until about 3 a.m. of
Oh.
people that were working together. You just kept touching in with every single team and trying to feel out what has changed because one of the things I did ahead of time was kind of map out what kind of the short term and long term view of each team was, what their draft capital was, um, and but the ground is moving underneath you. I think is one of the
Mhm.
things that I really learned is things have already kind of been agreed to, or plans are not going the way that you would see if you were representing that team. So now you really have to change your mindset because something you thought might not have been possible with them is possible now. You just have to keep talking to all of them. It was very interesting.
How? Yeah, I'm really curious about that. Thinking exactly how to phrase this, but I think there are teams that operate kind of more secretively than others. And is that, in your experience, it almost sounds like that'd be disadvantageous in this situation if you're not like really checking in or making it known, like, hey, I'm willing to trade so and so. I'm looking for this. You're kind of sneaking around. Does that leave you behind the 8 ball a little bit?
I mean, I would say so. I mean, it came out. uh, regarding Josh Giddey's restricted free agency right now in a sign and trade, and the Bulls say they haven't spoken to anyone about sign and trade. They just outright refuse to discuss sign and trade. Uh,
Mhm.
that's pretty questionable to me. Like, why would you not like see all of your options out there? And frankly, when you have other options like that, that gives you negotiating leverage as well. I think Daryl Morey, people have maybe it's changed over time. I'm thinking back to when he was with Houston. There were reports that he would just call everyone and just offer totally ridiculous things. Things that like again, going back to fantasy football or basketball, if it would be the person in your league who you hate, right? That they just you're like, come on, man, it never did. And every 1% of the time, someone agreed. And that's all that you need to be able to do it. Or you anchor your negotiating position. So maybe you don't get what you offered, but in the end, you get something that kind of goes to you. That was I'll point out, like on Wednesday, we had to present to a panel of many of the people that I've named already, and they were acting kind of as the owners of the team. You had to justify your position to them. Um, and one of the things we got told, we were talking about Carl Anthony Towns, and I said, the market for Carl Anthony Towns is pretty cool. And Eric Pincus replied to me, so you've talked to every team? And I like, well, no, we like identified a handful that we thought might be interested with him, and they really was no interest. He's like, so you don't really know what the market is. You know what like a quarter of the market is. That's very fair. And again, it goes back to me making assumptions about what other teams are trying to do. One of the advices I got from the alumni was don't say no on behalf of a team. Right? If you make a trade in your mind, don't then say no. They would never do that. Go make them say no. I think one of the trades I had on my list. Let me find it real quick. I had Mikal Bridges for Amen Thompson and Reed Shepard. Um,
Mhm.
Salaries worked really good. We actually cut a little bit of salary on that to be able to sign two veteran free agents instead of a second round pick exception. And in my mind, I went, yeah, but of course they're not going to move Amen Thompson. He's basically untradeable.
But what
That was
is
one
the
of them.
trade-off of that? I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
There is a line. I think I don't know. Eric Pincus probably knows more than me, but if you are the GM, you also
Yeah.
have to weigh, like, if you're not for sure trading Carl Anthony Towns, you don't want him to be annoyed with you that you're shopping him
Yeah.
also. And so if you go to everyone and then, you go to whatever team that happens to leak everything, and then it gets leaked and the player gets annoyed and you're kind of stuck. Where is there a balance? I mean, because I could also see the other side where you just think, and this is how, I mean, the only thing I can compare this to is fantasy sports. Like I try
Yeah.
to just offer trades to teams that seem like they could use this player rather
Yeah.
than going to everyone.
Yeah. I think that's a great question. It's one of the things that you just can't represent in an exercise like this is that there are real people. That was something that one of the speakers talked about is like, you make a trade for someone. It was actually Mike Zarin again, and talking about um, players that you trade and just how it can cause major feelings. And if you I'm supposed to keep pretty private what was said, so I don't want to go into too many details, but if you think of um, Celtics players that were beloved that then got traded, and he said there's moments where you cry when you have to actually make that phone call to the people. I can
Mm-hmm.
send in this thing people's names, they don't mean a whole lot, right? But when I
You
actually
don't
then
know
have to
them.
pick up the
Yeah.
phone and call that person and tell them that I'm uprooting their family, uh, that's really something very different. I think also to your point about like, you don't want to shop everyone's name out there. Um, One of the things that was talked about was you'll see teams that do business with the same teams over and over again. That's
Mm-hmm.
because they know who they can trust to talk to and who they can't. Um, you know, Putting aside anything to do with the actual trade, Nico Harrison trusts Rob Pelinka,
Palinka.
right?
Yeah.
Enough that
Yep.
they can have conversations and him not worry that they're going to get out. and that's an
And nothing
advantage.
got out. That's a great that's a great example. Everyone was like, "What the hell just happened?"
Right. So I think you have to be very careful with how you use the media when you're choosing to leak certain things to try to gain an edge, because I think that can backfire on you much more um, than just being quiet with what you're doing. And I have thought a lot about, how often you would be checking in, whether you would have representatives of your teams checking with every team weekly, every team bi-weekly, like just a touch in. Hey, anything changed? You thinking anything? If we were talking about this person, this is hypothetical. Of course, we're not going to trade him, but if there's that kind of, would that be interesting? Like anything on your side that you've been kind of just imagining, totally hypothetical. We're not actually talking. I think I get the feeling there's probably a lot of that goes on.
That's interesting. I would never have guessed that, but it makes sense. Right? Like you need to be in communication. It's just crazy. There's 30 teams, so it's like you got a lot of people on speed dial, I guess, and you're always kind of
Yeah,
checking in. But that's kind of the nature of it, and things can change so quickly, right? Maybe you go on like a 10-game winning streak, and you're like, oh, maybe our tides are turning, and we need to go from sellers to buyers. Things can really, excuse me, change in a hurry. I think's pretty
for sh-
fascinating.
for sure. So I'm gonna go day by day of kind of where we went through as the Knicks, and get your feelings on it, and kind of just explain the thought process. But it all leads up to Friday. We get a 4 hour window where we get to actually execute those things. Boy, was that stressful. We'll talk about that when we get to it, and then the presentation on Saturday. And I put in some expectations here because, frankly, people got very serious about it. There was on Friday, two people got into a screaming match with one another, and had to have moderators come over and say, "Whoa, like calm it down a little bit." So, um, people were very serious about this, and I liked it. Right, I like a little bit of competition like that. So. I'm going to go first to kind of some of. Let's start here. So I'm going to do just a very high level overview. I know you know this, but feel free to ask any questions on behalf of this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but a lot of people think the CBA is extremely difficult. There are complications to it, which make it fun to work with, but I don't think it's as hard as some people think it is. Right? Essentially, yeah, you have a salary cap line, right? You can't go over that salary cap line. That would be like a hard salary cap. Well, basketball doesn't have a hard salary cap. They have a soft salary cap. So you get a whole bunch of exceptions, right? You can be below the salary cap, except in situations like you want to keep your own players. Sure, okay, you can do that to stay over the salary cap. You want to sign players to a minimum contract just to fill out your roster. Sure, you can do that. You got rookies that you want to sound like a first round pick exception or a second round pick exception. Okay, then we're also gonna give you the mid level exception. So you get a little piece of money depending on how much salary you've spent. Um, that you can get, another guy or maybe two guys with this little bit of money. And some of these things, it would be, kind of you can map over time of different CBAs of when they came in, and then you get the biannual exception. It's another exception you can use for one guy in every other year, or something like that. And if you have some player who's out for the rest of the season, you get some money back and you can spend it like that. So a bunch of exceptions, right?
Mhm.
But then everyone was going far over the salary cap using this exception. So we brought in the luxury tax, right? And so we said, yeah, but if you spend over this line, you're going to have to start paying money to the teams that don't go over that line. And people still kept going over the line. So then it was like, well, but we're going to have tiered, right? Where if you spend over all these progressive lines, you're going to spend even more. Like each amount more than that, you're going to pay more and more. Well, people kept spending. So then we introduced the tax repeater. So if you've done it multiple years, then the lines are going to happen earlier. They're going to go up faster, and you're going to get penalized even more. Well, you know what happened? People still kept on spending. So then we had an apron, right? The apron was it's a little bit more than the tax line, but there's actual basketball rules that, like, if you're above the apron, you can't do some of these things. And then we named it the apron based on like the apron of a stage. It goes a little farther than the front of the stage, but no one ever thinks of it like that. It's just a very confusing name, so no one knows what it is. And then people kept still doing spending too much money, and so then the basically in the 2023 CBA, the teams said these players still expect us to keep spending money. Please make it harder for us to spend money. So they added a second apron, right? And now
Mhm.
there's still no limit that really stops teams. There are a lot of ways teams can just keep spending more and more and more, paying more luxury tax, but they do get much more limited on what they can do. So that's basically how you put those things together. Oh, there's also a salary floor. So like Brooklyn is still below the salary floor right now. It's 90% of the cap, so they got to spend like another $14 million before the start of the season, or else they get penalized. So they got to spend a little bit more money. So those are basically all the thresholds. And you want to know like the rules that you can't do um, if you're over the first apron, but you're not over the second. You can't use the non-taxpayer mid-level. You got to use the smaller one, the taxpayer mid-level. You can't sign a wave player that was above the mid-level. So basically, you can't get a full mid-level player. You can't use the biannual exception. You can't use an expanded traded player. That came into account for the Knicks very much. So I can't send out more in a trade than I bring back, more or less. I can't use a trade exception from prior year. I can't acquire a player in a sign and trade. If I go over that second apron, and that's where we've seen teams like the Suns be in before. You can't use the mid-level exception at all, either the non-taxpayer or the taxpayer. You can't aggregate contracts. So if I send out a $20 million player and a $30 million player, I can't bring a $40 million player back, even though he makes less.
Mhm.
I can't use unless that brought me below the apron. I can't use a trade exception from a sign and trade. I can't sign and trade my own guys, and I can't sign up cash and trade. So Brooklyn sent out cash in a trade. So even though they're $14 million below the floor, they're also technically hard capped at the second apron. Of course, they will not reach either of those. So those are kind of all the rules. This is kind of just the rules of engagement here. These are the thresholds and the amounts that were out there for this year. So um, you can see as far as the Knicks go, the important number here is going to be that second apron number. So just kind of remember it at 207 million. So go from there, and we're gonna jump over to some of the resources that I use. And the first one, I just want to shout out. Um, so Larry Kuhn used to keep this website updated. It was NBA, CBA, FAQ. He has since retired, so this has not been updated for the 2023 version. But this was my gospel when I started learning this. Was with the 2011 collective bargaining agreement. That's how I learned everything that I first knew about this when I started creating my own cap sheet. So I just want to say thank you to him. And I would love to see someone create a 2023 version of this. So
You?
I was talking to Bobby Marks about because Bobby, let me, as long as I'm shouting that out, um, if you go to Sports Business Classroom, Bobby has this CBA 101 cheat sheet. You just give your information and then you're able to download it. And that is the best Bible version I have for 2023 right now. Um, Bobby does an amazing job. And I mean, this is a 245-page document, so
Wow.
there's a lot in there. But for Larry, not that Bobby doesn't. Bobby does a great job, but there's just a lot of great explanations in here, just really written in common sense terms, that just kind of walks you through everything here. So I still, when people ask me where to start, I tell them to start here. There are some things that are now incorrect compared to the 2023 version, so you got to learn to adjust from there. And I would go. I'll link in the description for this article all of these things. There's a good hoops rumors article about what changed from the 2017 CBA to the 2023 CBA. But I just I need to show that one because it meant a lot to me. And then if you're a sick person, you are welcome to go to the collective bargaining agreement. In my articles on Substack, please give it a subscribe at substack.utterhoops.com. I will a lot of times in the footnotes actually put the legal language of the actual CBA. This is, if you took 245 was big, this is a 676-page document, and it is written in true legalese. So it's not an easy read, but I try to give people the actual content when I'm referencing a rule that makes a difference to a situation that we have there. And I'll also include there's a really good link here from Atlanta Hawks Fanatic that has not only the CBA but also the actual contracts that players sign, because there is some information in there that might be related to the operations manual or things like that. So there's good information here. It's also maybe a little bit more readable than just the single PDF. So that's some of the stuff that I like to suggest to people. The other thing that Bobby provides, and again, this is free. You can sign up for it on Sports Business Classroom. Is every transaction that occurs,
Wow.
Bobby does a little write up of it. So you can actually walk through and learn some of these situations with real examples as they happen. This Invalidante signing kind of got the cap nerds very interested, but you can look through, and this is a great way as things happen to kind of understand it, the mechanisms that occur in signings or in trades or things like that. The other
Ironic
tools,
to It's ironic too that it happened to the Rockets. Morey was known for finding all those little edges, right?
right?
And
We
here,
Yeah, we talked about like when Jeremy Lin and Omar Ashik got signed to the big escalating contracts in year three
hmm
that were essentially unmatchable at the time. So yeah, people. I mean, some of the offices are very creative, and actually, the Knicks office is known as being very creative in this, and in doing that, they're smashed right up against the hard cap. So that will kind of be the way that we talk through this, but. A couple other shout outs, capsheets.com. This is Yossi Goslin's. If you don't follow him, he does an amazing Substack as well called The Third Apron, and is on YouTube. But he also manages cap sheets. It's just a very clean way, and he updates them basically immediately anytime anything is done. Very clean way to view a single year. The other way that I'm almost always looking at stuff is in this multi-year view on Spot Track. Shout out to my guy Keith Smith, who works for Spot Track in analysis and his front office show podcast. But this is kind of where I want to start from. I guess let's shout out real quick to I don't know anyone at Real GM. Someone at Real GM, reach out to me. I know how to be your friend. But Real GM is the best way to view where people have picks. So we'll kind of be looking through that as well. So um, all right. I think I have hit enough through kind of basically what the setup was. Like I said, I went through every team, even before I got to Sports Business Classroom, and did a look at what their short term and long term situations were. But then on Monday, got assigned the Knicks. And our first of all, my team was amazing. Some of the other teams may have had a little bit of issues with one another. Man, we were rock solid the whole way. Shout out to Wes and to Sonya and to Cohen. Like you guys were amazing. I loved working with you guys. So we kind of all agreed right from the start, like we weren't going to do anything unless we were all on board. We moved slowly at the start. One of the funny things was Monday, the very first break. So this is like 10 a.m. We were sitting at the table with the Raptors, and they just sprinted off in different directions. You take Giannis, you take LeBron, you take uh, like they're just all over like immediate. And we were just like, let's just wait. We'll study. We'll kind of see what comes to us. That was kind of where we started. So we really spent most of Monday digesting where we currently stood. Like I said, I had a little bit of an idea, but I asked you in advance to take a little bit of a look at this. So
hmm
when you look at the New York Knicks, well, I guess I should start with I was a little disappointed to get the Knicks. Um, I wanted a team that maybe had more options, more interesting things to do. I'm curious if you were to have gotten assigned a team, is there any off the top of your head that you're like, oh, I would have wanted blank?
uh, good question. Probably not. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I would want the Suns because
Yeah.
they're an absolute mess. And we've talked about. I'm gonna forget the name of the game where you can be the GM and like play through. And
It's
it
just
took me
basketball
like a
GM. Yeah.
decade. Basketball GM. It took me like a decade to undo the mess that the Suns are.
And it may.
Um,
You and I have talks like
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I was telling you, like, if they could get their pick frozen again in 2033, that might be the best thing for them to have two
It
future
really
picks
might.
frozen that they just couldn't do anything with for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
Um,
they might be better off not controlling their own destiny a little bit, not being able to
well,
trade picks because
and,
they don't believe in the draft,
and
apparently.
I will tell you, the team that operated the Suns did not waive and stretch Bradley Beal in
Yeah.
this exercise. So that was a decision they made. They wanted to not do that, but also find a way to get themselves back under the aprons and under the tax. So that'll play a factor later, as we know.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to get someone who um, someone like Chicago or Sacramento or New Orleans, someone who's kind of been stuck in the middle and needs to make a decision, you know,
Hmm. I guess
it
there's more
was
room to maneuver, right? Like in that kind of situation. I see where I mean, I'm looking at the Knicks roster right now. I agree. There's other side too where you could have like an exciting team, right? Like you could have the Spurs where you have Wemby on a rookie contract, and you're like, oh baby, what are we gonna do with this?
yeah. And the Spurs ended up being named the top ranked team in this exercise, and they just made moves around the margins. They really
Hmm.
didn't do anything big, but they made like three moves that all improved them just a little bit. They actually got a team option on their extension with De'Aaron Fox, which you basically never see team options on something like that, which makes him imminently more tradable if another star becomes available as matching salary. So yeah, they did a really good job.
Hmm.
I think they did good things. Going back to kind of those middling teams, one of the things that I saw that I just maybe have a whole new respect for is that I think there were instances where they had a move over here that went pretty well, and they had a move over here that went pretty well. But when you looked at them in the aggregate, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I just could see much better than I've ever been able to see before how easy it is to be like, we're going in this direction, we're going in this direction. Oh, shiny object, right?
Hmm.
And you end up just kind of floating in this no man's land. The other team that did really well was the Bucks, who just decided that they were going to trade Giannis basically from the start. That was the first real offer that we got. So we'll kind of come into that. We were in on discussions with Giannis until the price escalated quite a bit. But they did a really good job. The other thing that they were able to do is they traded Miles Turner, so they I have an article on my Substack about them getting a lot of value from waiving and stretching Damian Lillard, but they also get the downside of that is that they now have money on their books for the next 5 years, right? Which makes them less flexible. If they decide to do a teardown, they won't have cap space to like take in people's dead money. So like next year,
Hmm.
again, Washington is going to have like $100 million. They're not actually going to sign like LeBron to a max contract. They weren't going to get Luka Doncic if he hadn't signed his extension, right? They didn't create all that cap space because they're going to get a lot of people through cap room. That's not really how it works anymore. They
Right.
created it so that when people need a dumping ground for contracts, they can acquire picks with it, right? And that's
The Thunder
uh,
model.
the yeah. I mean, why would you not, right?
Yeah, I mean, it worked out
You look
very
at
well for them.
Sam Presti was another speaker, by the way. So we got to speak to the coach of the
Nice.
year and the executive of the year in this, and they took real questions, which was cool as well. They spoke and took questions. Um, but the Bucks were able to move in waving and stretching Lillard. They're able to get Turner. They were able to move him for two first round picks. So they were the other team. The top three teams in this exercise ended up being the Spurs, the Bucks, and us, the Knicks. So
Nice.
um, they did a really good job as well. I think just as the Knicks, we did not have any as many moves to make, and we'll kind of get at this. But long term, right? We can certainly say the Knicks are in a point now. They're trying to win a championship, right?
Hmm.
Do you like this core? Towns, Ananobi, Brunson, Bridges, Hart. You can count Mitch Robinson or Miles McBride in there, Deuce
That's what
McBride,
Brad.
if you want as part of the core. I kind of look at that the top five. Is that a championship core?
Um, hmm. I mean, the East is a mess right now, so
Right.
there's probably an argument to be made for it. I just, well, I don't have a career in this area, so I'll just say it. Uh, Carl Anthony Towns' basketball IQ, I think, is negative,
Yeah.
and that really scares me on this team. And he's very important. I mean, if you look at, it's kind of an undersized team, and you need someone big. I think, looking at the roster right now, and my God, he scares me to be on the floor because he's going to commit the most blatant foul and then complain about it. And when it was like completely illogical, and so that scares me. The other four or five guys you might be looking at, yeah. I mean, Mitchell Robinson's, there's issues with him being able to stretch the floor. I don't think he can shoot at
Yeah.
all. So tough place. I mean, you did mention you tried to move and it seemed like lukewarm market, although only a quarter of the market, right? But not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we expanded our search a little bit after that, just to kind of set the stage as far as long term. We'll scroll down. So again, as far
Hmm.
as where they're at with the second apron, right? So they are at $204 million in salary this year as well. So they've only got 3.7 below, but they already spent the taxpayer mid level. They spent it's 500, what is it? 685, something like that. They spent 5.5 of that on Gershon Yabusele. They asked him to take a little bit of a discount to give them a little bit more space at the bottom. Again, they needed to be pretty creative when you get stuck against those apron, because using any part of that taxpayer mid level hard cap them at the second apron. Right. So we
Okay.
have no way to go any farther than 3.7 million. When I
Hmm.
click over to where we currently sit, the other issue is that they only have 12 players under roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
You need
you have to get to
14.
14. You have to get to 14. Now you can be under 14 for up to 28 days in the year and up to 14 of those consecutive. That also came into play for us later. Again, being creative on this, you get a lot of constraints that you're trying to tinker with just barely. So even if they were to sign two vet min guys, it would be over.
Hmm.
So at the moment,
Yeah.
they cannot sign two veterans to contracts. Basically, without a trade, the only way that they can fill their roster is by signing one of their people that they have second round pick rights for,
Mhm.
and someone to a veteran minimum. So um,
And
if we scroll
barely
down,
be under.
barely, right? And that's a good point as well. So, the barely is 150,000 under, something like that, and, you're gonna have circumstances late in the year. If you remember, Dallas was near to forfeiting a game,
Yes.
this season because they tinkered so close to the cap.
Hmm.
There was you would want to have some money left to be able to sign someone to the 15th roster spot late in the year, or 10-day contracts, or yeah, I mean, there's things that you're going to want to do here. So I
Yeah.
would be shocked if this is actually the roster that the Knicks finish the trade deadline with. They
Hmm.
could, I mean, and just roll the dice that you don't need that money or something like that. But I think you'd like to have $500,000 at least, 500,000 to 1 million to do some other things with. So I think they will at some point in this season make a move. Maybe not as big a move as we made, and that's kind of where we started.
Hmm.
When we were looking at this team, was moves around the edges. By the way, these are the unsigned draft picks. The only one that's not listed here is Mohamed Diawara, who was their draft pick, their second round draft pick they traded from the Mavs this year. James Najee played with them in summer league, and really the rest of these guys are not going to get signed to that spot. So it's an interesting case for me. Maybe we missed something here, but we kind of understood it to mean that they were going to need to sign either Najee or Diawara to that final spot. There's a lot of rumors that Diawara is going to get signed to a two-way. If that happens, then I guess Najee would take that last spot. He played really poorly in summer league, so I don't know that that's going to be the case. And like I said, maybe I'm missing. There's another guy here, or they can trade for the rights to a second round pick and sign someone. So maybe they have something on the back burner that I don't particularly understand. Right.
Hmm.
Um, Going forward, right? If we were to go forward, because we want to, this is kind of our chance to look at the high level of this. Going forward, next year they have about $15 million from being in the second apron.
Okay.
But that's with Mitchell Robinson expiring. But basically, if you're going to keep Mitchell Robinson beyond this year, you're going to be into the second apron. Keith Smith had a good line while we were there that he said, being in the above the second apron is kind of like coming to Vegas. It's okay to visit, but you can't stay there too long. Um, so, and basically, we know that's 2 years, right? You can be above the
Yeah.
second apron for 2 years. So I really think that the window for this version of the Knicks is 3 years here. The year
Hmm.
ending 26, 27, and 28. When you go into 29, Ananobi and Brunson will have player options. Bridges was not on this contract at the time. I guess I should say that was the part that was not done. That's the only move the Knicks have made since we did Sports Business Classroom was Bridges extension was not done. We'll talk about the differences that we had between those two. But uh, if you're going to keep Bridges and you're going to keep Robinson, you keep this core intact, you're now over the second apron in 27 and likely in 28 as well. And that really means that this year is going to be the last year that the Knicks can make a big move to aggregate and go get a big name player. That would need to
Hmm.
happen before the trade deadline this year. So the way that we looked at it was basically we have a nice team. Like you said, the East is good. I would pick the Knicks second in the East. Some people have them favored over Cleveland. I would have them as the second best team in the East, above Orlando. And if you win the East, everyone has a shot. Do I think that they would compete against the Thunder? No, but I didn't think the Pacers would compete against the Thunder. So, um, the one option is you just kind of stand pat. But if you decide to stand pat this year, just because you think the East is down, you do kind of lock yourself into some stuff going forward as well. Um,
Yeah.
but so that's kind of where we left Monday. I should say on let's look at draft picks as well. This was a good thing to know for every team. So you can actually look on Real GM and look through every single pick of how it moved. This is pretty tough to read. Like if you look at this 2028 pick, the
Oh my
Knicks sent
God.
out a swap of this, but it depends on it's a pick to Brooklyn that's either going to be Brooklyn's or Phoenix, but it depends on when Philadelphia conveys a pick to Oklahoma City. Total mess. So that's one view of it. I like this view a little bit better. Like that same situation that I just described. I'm gonna get the this less favorable of Knicks, Brooklyn, and Phoenix. So um,
Hmm.
as far as first round picks, the Knicks have their own in 2026, 2030, and 2032. They have the least favorable of a swap, but it's a swap with Brooklyn and Phoenix. So you're gonna get the worst of Brooklyn,
Yeah.
Phoenix, and the Knicks. I guess it's possible Brooklyn pops by 2028, or Phoenix isn't as bad as I'm worried they're gonna be by 2028. Um,
You'll probably
the,
have your own pick.
they do have a pick from Washington, a first round pick for this next year. That
Hmm.
pick will not convey why. If Washington is decent to start the year, they will fire sale guys like Chris Middleton, and they will do everything they can because one, they don't want to give up their own pick, but two, they have a swap with Phoenix. So if Phoenix is in the lottery, they really have two lottery chances. But if they don't have their own pick, they can't swap to Phoenix. So they lose the possibility that Phoenix bounces up in the lottery. So this pick will not convey, but it will become two second rounders, one in 26 and one in 27. Those are going to be really valuable picks, and picks that will be valuable to the Knicks who need cost control, like we just showed, right? Need the
Hmm.
ability to be able to sign people to second round pick exceptions in the future.
Yeah.
That was actually something that came up in trades and people kept asking for, and I was pretty hard set on not dealing that pick for a long time because of the cost control factor. So um, that's kind of where we started from as the Knicks.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump off this. We can go back to the screen in a little bit. So now we're kind of talking through how the week went. So Monday, like I said, some people just ran off. Some people were making deals already. We kind of learned what our situation, started looking at some of the things. Some of the things that came to us, um, well, the Bucks was the first thing that came to us. The
Hmm.
Bucks were asking for. Uh, they basically came and asked for Ananobi, Bridges, and all of our picks. They weren't. They didn't quite understand that we didn't have that many picks. So we said we basically had the Washington first rounder and four swaps. When I say all of the picks, it was all the first rounders, right? The second rounders maybe would have been adjusted to make things work. So that's kind of where we started with them. And I was texting with you guys on the side just on that deal. And I think most people were on the side of take it, but there was really some question of whether that was the model to go after. So let's just go back to that very first simple part. Would you have taken that
Hmm.
deal?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking. So Ananobi and Bridges, all of a sudden, it's Brunson, Towns, Hart, Giannis, whatever else. I don't know. It's feeling Sunsy to me, which is frightening. I just, I mean, yeah, I guess you weaken another team in the East, maybe, but and the working theory was just have the best player in the world on your team, and Giannis probably was that for a little while. I think
Yeah.
you could just pretty much past him. But it's just I don't know. It feels to me like the league is moving into a direction where, like you said, it's more about the weakest link, and you are now talking about playing more weak links essentially in your roster. So I think ultimately, I think when you first mentioned it, I was a bit more enthusiastic. In retrospect, like looking at it now, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
think I think it.
we were talking. It's kind of the star model again. You basically have
Mm-hmm.
a big three of Brunson, Giannis, and Towns. I think they actually complement each other decently. Um,
Yes.
but defensively, the question is, could Giannis get back to his peak form defensively? Because he's gonna have to cover up a lot if you
Yeah.
have Towns and Brunson there, and what you're gonna do with that. So we weren't super enthused at that. We did come to find out that they really wanted to move OG and Bridges to other teams as well. They didn't really want to keep them. They wanted to move them on to gather more picks. So at this time, they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of seeking all of the picks, and so that's where we went on the kind of the towns market and started asking teams. We were talking to Portland and New Orleans and Atlanta were kind of the main targets, and there's a couple others thrown in there, and that's like I said, that's when I kind of found that the Towns market was pretty cool. We were basically trying to move Towns for garbage contract and picks, and like one of the options was doing like Vucevic and Collins, and I was trying to figure out how to get Kevin Herter in it as well. We would have to give up a little bit more salary back, Yabusele or something like. They wanted us to take Patrick Williams. That was never ever going to happen. Other ideas I had like Tobias Harris and Duncan Robinson. Uh, Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, and Jared Vanderbilt, Harrison Barnes, Kelly Olynyk, Jeremy Sohan. So these were the kind of things that we were pitching to people of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but we needed a lot of picks, right? We were like,
Yeah.
they were kind of asking how much are we looking for, and we're kind of looking at Milwaukee, like, how much are you looking for? Like, okay, how many picks are we really talking here? We can do our swaps, all the picks that we can get from this, whatever second rounders we can make to make it work, and that's kind of frankly, that's as far as we ever got on Giannis. He ended up going to the Rockets for Shingun, Shepard, uh, Tari Eason had to be routed to the Grizzlies to make it work. Who was the other? Jabari Smith Jr. So and
Wow.
three first round picks. So
Wow.
we said not only did they get three first round picks, but that team they probably made the Bucks better this year,
Yeah.
getting Shingun and Smith and Shepard. So that was really good job by the Bucks to be able to get that. There was a couple other people that were in on that market, and it just kept pushing the price up and up and up. So nothing really got done for us on Monday. On Tuesday, we started having discussions on LeBron. So the question was, they wanted OG Ananobi, right, as the core of this trade. So LeBron, well, we tried to pitch Towns, right, to them because
Mhm.
LeBron and Towns are making very similar amounts of money. LeBron's making almost 53 million. And if we go back to the Knicks, Carl Anthony Towns was making 53. So for us, if we could just flip those two, oh boy, would we have been happy to be able to do that. We'd have figured out some way to make that work. But that was not something they were interested in. They wanted Ananobi, and this was something we kept coming around to was to get like a LeBron. We were going to have to aggregate some salaries, and the salary that made sense in this was Mitchell Robinson, and that caused some problems for us. Obviously, that gives up our backline defender to be
Yeah.
able to do a trade.
A
Lakers
small team
also
looking at him.
well, it's a big team on the wings, right? When we go back and we look
Yes.
at
Yes.
like the starting, I can kind of let's go through this real quick, right? This is our lineup, right? So Bridges
Okay.
starting at the two makes us pretty big, right? Now Hart, I don't know
Yeah.
if Hart's a two, three, or four, whatever you want to call him, but he's a good defender, a good positional rebounder. So this is a big team on the wings, but an unproven
Mhm.
team at the bigs. So
Yeah.
um, so yeah, and the Lakers also wanted picks in this. We were basically probably never going to do picks as part of this. But what we were looking for was there another move that we could make um, using maybe Mikael Bridges? This was at a time that we were struggling with extensions
Okay.
with basically everyone to you'll get two players. The best
And
version,
Bridges at the time, because now he's extended, he
yeah.
was expiring
He's
this year.
expiring. Yeah, 24/9 and
Okay.
expiring to become an unrestricted free agent. We'll talk about the Bridges extension. I don't uh they gave him pretty close to the max and they gave him 4 years, which was an interesting thing. Maybe we'll go to extensions next, but I should just say on the
Okay.
LeBron thing, um uh the one we liked maybe the best for Bridges at about 25 million was with Dallas. We were trying to do Daniel Gafford and Caleb Martin that kind of play
Okay.
as a wing with a little bit of upside and a defender. So we'd have been giving up OG and Mitchell Robinson, getting LeBron, Caleb Martin, Daniel Gafford. That both teams wanted wanted picks from us. We didn't have the picks to be able to give them, so that wasn't really going to happen. The other one that we kind of had a lot of time with was Portland, um, and I wanted to find a way to get like Donovan Clingan and Danny Avdia, like something like that. That wasn't something that they were willing to do. So they were trying to do Robert Williams and Shaden Sharp, something in that area. So I mean, these were things that like when I say back in the lobby, like we were discussing these things for multiple nights with people and just trying to find your point about checking in with people. Like I mean, I probably
Mhm.
spent 6 hours, 8 hours probably 6 hours talking with the guy from Portland over different nights. And some of
Mhm.
it was about this trade and some of it was about life and whatever, but you were building that relationship and maybe trying to make something happen. In the end, we didn't end up making anything happen. We also, I guess the other asset maybe that we could have discussed for us was we had the expired contract of Precious Achua that we could have signed him with non-bird rights and done a sign and trade with him, but only at the 3.7 million that we had in the tax line. He ended up signing for the biannual exception, so we didn't get it. We were just trying to grab an extra second round pick, right, to do all those things.
Mhm.
So, all right, um, so now let's jump forward. We're on Wednesday now. We've got to pitch what we wanted to do, and we've got other business to take care of. So I'm trying to clean up a little bit of business. So we're trying to get extensions kind of locked in, and we're trying to get our two-way players locked in. So when you're looking at our two ways, these were kind of the guys. McCullough and Beauchamp played with us on two ways last year. The third player who did is not eligible for a two way anymore. So we're just looking. Maybe we bring the two of them back. We sign Najee to one of our two way spots. We take DOR and we put him into again. DOR was playing well in summer league at the time. We put him into the full contract. So this is kind of what we were thinking. We went to James Najee's agent. We told him. We want to sign him. That agent was like, yeah, okay, we'll do it right away. We actually went to DOR and we said, we want to sign you into a contract. It's either going to be a two way or it's going to be a second round pick exception. Uh, let's go ahead. And she understood that, like, as a second round draft pick, she doesn't have a whole lot of options here other than to say yes to what we offer. So we made that offer. So we've got two of them locked in. And we went to Beauchamp, who I think might have been the most able to play for us this year. I think shooting guard was a spot that we could have used an addition. And they were like, no, we're going to go seek a minimum deal. Well, in the end, he's out of the league. They did not get him a minimum deal. He fell out of the league. And then McCullough was kind of
Interesting.
our third option there. So so we basically had two of our two ways kind of locked in at this point by Wednesday. And we started talking about extension. So um The 3 people that were eligible for extensions, and if you go to this, it's gonna list 4. McBride is not really extension eligible. The second year anniversary of his previous extension is not until December, and then he can't sign an extension mid-year, because he has another year that's guaranteed beyond that, so he's not really extension eligible. So the 3 people that are extension eligible were Towns, but the extension would not take place until this year. Bridges and who is expiring, and Robinson was expiring. Let's start with Towns. So Towns has a $61 million player option here. Uh, Basically, the only thing we were really considering was doing if he would decline this option, we would give him a 2 year that would cover 28 and 29, put him on the same timeline as Ananobi and Brunson, um, and and that would give us he would not be able to get a player option that because you have to have 2 guaranteed years. So it gives us another year of team control, and we would ask him to take a pay cut in this year as well. So we were kind of thinking 2 years, 100 million, something in that area. He basically takes instead of 61.39, he would basically have to take like I don't know exactly what it is, 51 or not 52.48 or something like that. Um, if you wanted a little bit more security. So we went to him and made that offer, and they said, nope, we want the max years, max money. And we were just stonewalled there. It was like, no, we're not discussing. We'll do an extension at the max. I mean, like that makes absolutely no sense for us. We could wait 2 more summers and still offer him the max. So like, you're not going to do an extension without giving a little bit up here. So no, we're not going to do that. So that one was basically off the table. I would tell you on on about an hour and a half into our 4 hour window on the Friday, the agents came to us and said, "Hey, do you want to talk about that Towns extension?" I was like, "No." Is like, and they're like, "Well, we're willing to come down a little bit." And I said, 2 years, 80. Like, if you want, like, basically the mid level there, like, okay, we'll do that. And they're like, we were thinking like 120. I was like, I'll do 90. I'm not doing any more than that. And they're like, we'll come back to you. They never came back to me. So yeah, we were just at a spot that, and I just didn't. We were doing too many other things at that moment. So that one was funny. So let's hit Robinson real quickly because that one didn't have a whole lot either. As we talked about, like if you do the Robinson extension, you are gonna lock yourself in pretty much, unless you're gonna trade and cut salary from a Harder, an Ananobi, or Bridges, or a Towns, or something like that. You're going to lock yourself to being a second apron team. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's probably the best route that they have to go. But you need him to take something fairly reasonable. We mapped out a couple of different options here, like a 3 year extension. Again, puts him on that same timeline, 3 years. So now to make him still trade eligible for this season, we said the big moves that they want to make, they'd have to do by this trade deadline, or else they're kind of set with what they got. 3 years, 49, I think, is about the most that they can give him. So I don't know. I go to you on this one or on the Cat one. I can tell you, we didn't end up doing extensions with either of those guys. Um,
So I guess with Cat, I'll just continue with my Cat slander and say I kind of doubt I'd be interested in
you
any
wouldn't
of
give him the full
those.
max years, max money
Yeah,
right now, three
that's a
years ahead of his
guarantee.
free
No,
agency.
yeah. I wouldn't hire his agent either. Um, then Robinson is an interesting one because I have a greedy fan view of these things, I guess. And I think there's an interesting dynamic of front office and owner. I think it was Chuck Klosterman who said this years ago to Bill Simmons, like, if you're an owner, it's like you own a Picasso to like look at this, right? Like you have a beautiful work of art. There are 30 of these teams in the world. You own one, spend.
Yeah,
And so to me, if the Robinson move paying him, I think you said it was 70, that'd be like 23 a year.
yeah,
If that's gonna, on average, if that's gonna like get you to a championship, pay the man. I could care less. It's not my money. If they want to pay me 23 million a year, I would gladly take it.
yeah.
They'll immediately regret it. But I, to me, it's like, yeah, if you think that's the winning move, sure. And I do think what teams like the Suns have encountered with that second apron is it is hard to find the right fit. And you have a guy that seems to work well with the team who I think in fact finished a number of playoff games for them over Cat, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's what it takes to like retain him and talking about that window that you're talking about, maybe through 2028. Yeah, I'd be much more willing to pay him than to give Cat some extension that, um, frankly, I don't think is really deserved.
Yeah.
But I have a skewed view.
No, I don't think that's a skewed view, and I don't think the Knicks would either. I actually think James Dolan is someone who is willing to pay for a championship window. So in the end, I think they are going to get a Robinson either an extension or just sign him back as a free agent. The thing is, if you go to next year and he wants to sign somewhere for the full mid level, if we go up by 7%, it's gonna be about 15.1, right? And you put 5% raises on that, which is what another team could have done.
Mhm.
They could sign him for 3 years, 47 and a half. They could sign him for 4 years. What would that be? Like 64, right? 65. So the $70 million extension is more than he could make from anyone who would give him the mid level next year. Um, And I just don't know how many teams out there are going to be willing to use their cap space. We talked about this on about Bradley Beal on the last YouTube video that
Yeah.
I did for Bradley Beal, because Beal is going to need to make something in the 20s to get his time value of money back. If you haven't watched that video, go take a look or read it on my Substack. I just don't know who's out there that has the money. Maybe you just don't take the extension. You go in next year, and then basically you make the offer. And instead of starting him at 15-1, you start him at 16 or something like that, but increasing, and you can get him for 16 for 50 or 16 for
Yeah.
52 or whatever it ends up being. I certainly think I would be very surprised to see them now sign him to an extension for more than 3 years or more than 120% or more than 5% raises, because then he is not tradable. And I think he is a piece that is very involved if they're going to make a move here, which I
Yeah.
already said I think that is likely to do. So I would be very surprised. Now, until the trade deadline. If we get
Mhm.
past the trade deadline, sure, he may sign an extension at that point, and then maybe that's just what they're waiting on is to get to that point. So okay, so we're not doing the Cat one, we're not doing the Robinson one. That left us with Bridges. Bridges, we'd really like to do an extension with. The most he could get was 4 years, 157. We'll go back to here. We know that in reality, he took 4 years, 150. That was really surprising to me that they were willing to go to the fourth year with the player option. Um, Boy, and you notice this sheet is littered with player options. Josh Hart's the only one that has a team option. Hart's on a very nicely team controlled contract, but Towns has an option, and of course that came from Milwaukee. Anunoby has an option. Brunson has an option. Now Bridges has an option. So don't love that. I think Bridges, the 41 million, maybe as the cap continues to rise, doesn't look as bad then as you think it might. I think he'll be 33 at that time. Um, but we saw a 10% cap raise this year. We're projecting 7% next year. Spot Track is only using 5% in subsequent years beyond that. So it's not like the salary cap is going to continue to explode. Like these 8% raises on this are going to outpace the salary cap growth. So I don't know. I would we basically in our negotiations started by saying we're not doing 4 years. That was our anchoring point, was we're not doing 4 years. If that was the breaking point between keeping Mikal Bridges or losing Mikal Bridges, would you have given him that fourth year?
Good question.
You've already spent 5 first round picks on him.
Right.
So
You've got
maybe
a
it's a sunk
solid
cost,
investment.
but it's a
Yeah,
sunk cost,
that's
right?
that. That's it. That's exactly it. I think it's some cost. Um, as a Suns fan, huge Mikal Bridges fan, so probably would.
Yeah,
But if I try to stay neutral about it, um, yeah, I'd rather not
yeah.
have him a fourth year. If you could talk him into a team option, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's allowed. I don't know enough about caps,
Well,
but that might be my
fourth
hey, we'll
year.
give you four. But
Well, funny you say that. So fourth year team option would be better than a 3 year no option, right? From our
mhm.
perspective. So we started the bidding at 3 years, 100. So
Okay.
it was basically going to start at the maximum amount that he had here, and then decline by those 5% values. So um, yeah. So that was kind of the first off option that we had was 3 years, 100. They came back with 3 years the max. Right? We said don't really want to do the max. But they were off their player option. They were just like, okay, 3 years, the max. No, it was like, okay, that maybe, and we kind of talked about it at the time. It was like, we may take that in the end. We're not going to take it on Wednesday,
Yeah.
but if we get to Friday and 3 years, 113, this number here is the max that he could have made, and no option, we probably are going to stomach that.
Hmm.
So we came back with 3,105. Right? So we said we came
Okay.
off 100. We said no declines. We're going to go to 3,105, actually 104.58. Right? They came back with 3 years, the max 113, with a team option on the last year, and we said yes, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked about it again. Like I said, we were pretty much we all needed to agree on it, and so we said yes. And then later that night, they came back and said, you know what, we really can't do that. So they said we really can't do that. Let's do 3 years, 107. I was like, we agreed to something. Like we shook hands on it. Like we should stick by that. And they're like, yeah, but we talked about it. It's just yeah, it's probably not a very good deal for our player. So, well, okay, the 3,105 is still on the table. And then we kind of went away from each other. We the end story to this is we came around on Friday. We bantered it back and forth a couple of times more, and we did end up on that three for 105. So we got Bridges. The pitch that we had was for ours was we got him on 3 years, no raises, no options. That was what
Hmm.
we said. And from the agent's perspective, they said we got him the max raise in year one. Right, so he's a max extension year one. So I think that was a good spot for both teams to end up on. I was a little shocked when he came in at 4 for 150 again. The fourth year surprised me. He gave back a little, right? He gave back like 6 million on that, but it's really not very much. I don't know that how much that really allows them to be able to do. Again, I think with Robinson, they're under the second name. Like you said, it gives you flexibility in future moves, but
Yeah.
so that's where we ended up with our extension. So we did
Okay.
our talk on Wednesday. The a couple of people got ripped pretty hard for what they were presenting. I thought ours went, like I said, about as well as possible. We had trades out there. I'll kind of just zoom through this because really we just circled the wagons on the same thing that we've already talked about here on most of Thursday, with one exception. We started talking to the Suns about Devin Booker, and the Suns wanted 3 first round picks for Devin Booker, and we don't have any like outright first round picks, not swaps. So we didn't have any first round picks to be able to give. So we were that's what brought us back to the second round of going asking more teams for Towns. And yeah, we were not getting 3 first round picks for Carl Anthony Towns that we could then flip into a Booker deal. So we were still looking at other pieces of deals if we didn't want to do the big deal moving Josh Hart. We kind of liked Sam Hauser, George Niang when Niang was temporarily on the Celtics. That was going to
Hmm.
add about $1 million to the Celtics, who were trying to get under the luxury tax. So that was a little bit tough for them. We had like Malik Monk listed on here as an option to get more shooting around. I liked a package of Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. That was going to be a little bit hard to do from a salary and roster perspective. Um, we had like I went through. So just as a fun exercise, who would you trade Brunson for?
Wow. Are you a question or that's something you were thinking about?
We tried to basically cover all our bases. We kind of felt out the Lakers, like how our extension talk is going with Luca. If they weren't going to
Hmm.
sign Luca to an extension, and we could agree to an extension with Luca, then maybe they would want to just cut bait on him now. And so that was the only one that we had there. I kind of like the idea of Aaron Neesmith and Benedict Mathurin for Bridges. And that kind of gave you a couple of versatile guys there. So anyway, we had a whole lot of options there, but really we went into Friday assuming we weren't going to really be able to do much. That we just didn't have the package to make any big trade happen. We didn't want to make anything desperate again. No trade better than a bad trade. So we needed to fill out our roster. We had two-way guys, or one of them needed to go on to the second round exception if we weren't going to make a trade. So we needed two more two-ways, and we needed a vetman. So on Wednesday, we had a handshake deal to get Amir Coffey to fill kind of in that shooting guard spot. That would have been a really nice fill for us. I'm very surprised. Since then, he signed a camp contract, an Exhibit 10 with the Bucks. So he's competing. I think he has to beat out Andre Jackson Jr. as like a partial guarantee to even get a roster spot. I'm shocked that he did not.
Wow.
He was second on our list. So the top guy on our list was Bradley Beal. We said, if you can negotiate a buyout, then we will sign you. He didn't get a buyout, so oh no, he got a buyout. Sorry, he did get a buyout, but he didn't get stretched. That's what ended up happening. He did get a buyout, but he signed for more than we could offer him. We could only offer him the vet min, but we were pitching him like, come to New York. It's a 1 year, make good deal. You'll be the starting shooting guard. You'll be the finishing shooting guard. Come. No, we didn't. So we didn't get that. But Amir Coffey was second on our list, and I thought we had a deal for him. Again, we had a handshake on it, and this was one of the things that I would hope in the future gets mentioned more strongly. And I had it in my notes at the beginning. It's very hard to replicate the fact that in real life people have to keep working with each other. You can't burn bridges like that.
Mhm,
And there
mhm.
was a misunderstanding, I think, by the agents in this case about what they were agreeing to and what it meant and whatnot. And also from their side, had they talked to their whole agency about who was gonna what it took to make an agreement? Did everyone have to agree? Did just one person have to agree? So we thought we had our vet min, and then we didn't, right? And then we were looking for two-way guys. We started the morning. We went and talked to the agents for David Jones Garcia, who's played really well in summer league, and he agreed to a two-way contract with us. And with Colby Jones, who got traded from Oklahoma City to the Wizards and then waived, to see if he'd sign a two-way contract with us, and they agreed to that. So we start, and we think we have our two-way guys locked in, and 45 minutes in, a different agent from the same agency for Colby Jones comes over to us and just says, "Hey, that Colby Jones thing's no good. We're not doing it." And I'm like, we've agreed to this. I shook hands with someone in your agency. Is like, yeah, but we weren't all talking about it. We hadn't done our due diligence. We think we can get him a minimum elsewhere. And it was a little bit heated between the two of us, but he did a great job. He came back to me and we talked, and everything was good, right? And it's nothing personal. Everyone's trying to do the best for what they're trying to do in this instance. But we've now had one extension and two contracts where we thought we had them done, and there's only about 3 hours left in this exercise. And I'm scrambling around. We're still talking about things. Precious Achua's sign and trade is still out there. We're still talking to Phoenix about different things that could be back there. Portland's still wanting me to deal them bridges for something, and basically I'm trying to listen to everyone there. And it's a pretty crazy environment, right? So it's 140 of us plus the alumni plus the moderators, and people are kind of moving around pretty fast. It's loud. You're trying to find little spots in the corner to go off and talk to people. And one of the members of my team, Wes, was doing a great job with Phoenix, and he had been really since Wednesday night of talking through like what kind of different options, what it would kind of look like. And so we revisited those three picks, and it was really a question of like, okay, what is the value of those three picks, and how might we be able to replicate that value, right? And so by the way, OG Ananobi was the main piece that we were going to be trading away in this deal. And again, as we talked about, now Robinson becomes the matching salary, right? So Robinson plus OG, we're like, that's a pretty, you're getting value from that, but you're not, you know, you're not getting the picks. They're like, we don't really want Robinson. Um, we would rather have the picks. Like we're trying to get under the tax. Remember, they didn't stretch Beal, but they're still trying to get
Mhm.
under the tax. So they really need to cut salary. So they don't really want Robinson. So now we're going around again. This is now maybe 2 hours left or something like that. We're going around. Hey, Utah, do you have space? No, we used up our space in something else. Hey, Washington, do you still have? No, we don't have space. Hey, Charlotte, yeah, Charlotte has some space, and we're interested in Robinson. Okay, what are you willing to give up? Well, we can give up like a Josh Green. Well, Josh Green's pretty matching salary, so we can't really take that back. Okay, well then what else can we do? We need to take in that salary and put stuff that we can just dump to you. Is there a way we can do that? Well, work on it. We'll come back around. With about an hour left, um, we I should let me come back around to that. We did sign our vet minimum ended up being Seth Curry. We were able to get on the same agent that we did the Bridges extension with, and then the last two-way spot we gave to Dink Pate, who interestingly the Westchester Knicks just traded for his rights from the Mexico City Capitans. So I don't know if that's an indication that they might be putting him on a two-way, or that they're going to leave him on their G League roster, or Exhibit 9 type thing. So. Um, we have Dink Pate in SBC and in real life is going to be some part of the Knicks. So we did fill out the two spots. Like if everything falls apart here, we're okay, right? We didn't improve our team a lot, but we did the things that we have to do. We signed the people that we needed to sign. We picked up Dottier's option here. So now we're probably done with all that by about 1 hour left. Obviously the rest of this is going to be a sprint to a trade at the end. Any comments on any of the craziness building up to that point?
No, other than well, I guess yes. Then it's just kind of interesting. You have to kind of to hear how essentially you're juggling the opportunity to do something big versus also just getting done what you need to get done to run it back, which isn't just like and it's not as easy as one would think, I guess, to do, and to maintain that flexibility to make bigger moves.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. I think uh, so. Two things. One is there was someone in the room who had been in front offices at the time, and we kind of asked, like, "Is this really what the trade deadline's like?" Is like, honestly, yeah, it's kind of similar to this. Like, just in terms of, I think people, I'm gonna guess the last couple days, everyone in the front office is just working full time, around the clock and trying to get things done, and I bet you 80-90% of the things that you think are gonna get done don't get done, right at
Mhm.
the line, and that's pretty much where we were as well. Still thinking we probably weren't gonna be able to get anything done. So um the other thing is Devin Booker, because he had signed his extension already, was not trade eligible technically until January 10th. So we would have had to do all this other stuff in the off season, and maybe that's one of the things that I should say here is that um, if we look at where we were to start the season, um, we were really here, right? So this was done, right? This
Mhm.
this is where on October 1st we had 14 players. We were that crazy 150,000 or whatever under the second apron. And we could have just kind of stopped here and had it to go. We have the two-way guys as well. David Jones Garcia, Dink Pate, and James Naji on our tour. So we filled out our roster. We feel like we've done everything that we needed to be able to do. Um, but we're still the only thing really the Lakers wanted a little bit more. Again, Portland is talking to us, but really we're down to the Knicks or to the Suns. Are we going to be able to do something there? Okay, so we were talking about the value there. So we said that Wizards pick has to count as one of the first round picks. They were pretty fine with that, even though they actually didn't necessarily know that it was going to be protected. So then as salary, we kind of added, we'll add Miles McBride. We're getting a shooting guard anyway, so giving up a shooting guard, maybe not as big a deal. And we're gonna put back Packham Dadier in it. So Dadier was our first round pick last year. So we want Dadier to count as one of those picks, right? And then that still left us one pick short. We said we can't do a pick, we'll do all our swaps. We can have all four of our swaps. And he kind of took maybe 5-10 minutes on that. And so with about maybe 30 minutes left, he was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to, he had other things going with some other teams as well. They weren't as close as we were. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. We're going to go forward. We're good. We're going to do it with that pick. Right. But we still need someone to take Robinson. We've been running around to other teams. And again, my guys were doing such a good job. They were going around because again, this is where it really mattered that what you thought you knew is not the case anymore. And the Raptors had made a bunch of other moves and had opened up cap space. And they could actually take in the $13 million of Mitchell Robinson. So the guys that we were with at the table on day one ended up being the guys that we really needed to be able to help us to get this thing across the finish line. So now we would have liked to get more from Mitchell Robinson, something in return for them. They caught on pretty quickly. Like I was saying, okay, maybe we can get a first round pick. They're like maybe multiple seconds. And I was like, yeah, we can do this. And I'm like, let's go. Like there's only 20 minutes left. And one of them said, it sounds like you need this from us more than we need this from you. I was like, okay, I'm found out on this. So like, like, okay, all right, let's just do it for one second round pick, and that's fine. Let's just do swap rates on a pick. All right, that's fine. So they end up getting, Mitchell Robinson. They got to extend him or resign him this summer, but they keep his bird rights. But they get him for a pretty good cost. But it was a point that we had to make, in order to make this trade work. And I think there'll be a question of whether that was worth it to just give Mitchell Robinson away in order to get Devin Booker. So the end trade, um, and this is maybe where it mattered that we got a little bit of help, is that we tried to do this trade, right? We tried to bring in Booker and Nick Richards, sending out OG, Robinson, McBride, and Dottie. And that worked from a salary perspective, but it didn't work from a roster spots perspective. We were sending out four people and only bringing two back, and we didn't have a way to fill out the rest of the roster with the 1.5 million that we were going to have left. And I was trying to figure out whether we could, if we did it right, we didn't do it on January 10th. If we did it later at the trade deadline and we used 10-day contracts, or we used all 28 days of those that were. And again, this is we're about 20 minutes left. Like, okay, I don't know how we're gonna get this done. Maybe we do it somewhere else. Okay, so I really wanted Richards because we had to send out Robinson. Okay, so we weren't going to be able to do that. Let's do it with Iguodaro and Fleming. Not necessarily either guys that are great rim protectors, but just more defenders. With
Mhm.
Fleming, hopefully he's a good defender. Iguodaro can play some backup center minutes. So and two young guys as well. The Suns, this is maybe where the Suns probably get docked a little bit, is giving up two young guys when they're trying. But they were at a point they were like, we don't do this trade, I don't get under the aprons and the tax that was my main goal. So that was kind of where they were at as well. So yeah, that ends up being the final trade that we do. And so we receive Booker, Iguodaro, Fleming, and second round pick swap rights. The Suns receive Ananobi, McBride, Dottier, that Wizards pick, and then swap rights in only 3 years. Why? We realized we had written it all up. We can't send them the pick in 2032 because their pick is frozen. So, we said four swap rights. We ended up, the 2032 is probably the one that we could be the worst. We ended up being able to keep that. So now we have a spot where, very possible those first two swap rights don't ever transfer. Um, we maybe do swap in 2030. And Other than that, we gave up no picks. It was actually a little bit confusing when we presented this and we said we gave up no guaranteed first round picks. And it's
Hmm.
like, so we traded for Booker for no guaranteed first round picks. And that a lot of people were like, so you gave up, these, a Wizards pick and a bunch of spots. It's like, yeah, but I don't know if any of those become first rounders. So uh curious what you think. We've had a little bit of talk from this, either from our side, from the Sun side. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'll start on the Suns side as a Suns fan. I, I saw this text as you initially you're like, I'm not gonna bug you guys. It's like a fantasy thing. Like don't worry, it's like fantasy trade. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, we want to know. I was on a
Yeah.
trip with a couple of
You
other
especially were
friends, and
the
it's
most.
like,
I was texting you on the side
yeah,
too, outside of the group,
yeah.
because you seem legitimately interested.
Um, I can't express how disappointed I was as a Suns fan by this fake trade. Um, to, as you said, get basically probably no first rounders. To get Ananobi, who is the same age or potentially older than Booker, to give up two young players. I guess Dadier is probably maybe the youngest player because Fleming I
Yeah.
think is 23.
Yep.
Also, I think is probably about that age.
Yep.
Um, I would honestly, I would. Well, I guess I do have one Suns jersey, but let's pretend I had a whole bunch of Suns memorabilia. I would just go and burn all of it because it's atrocious.
On
I
the Sun side, I think the argument
Yeah,
is we get under the luxury tax this year, and McBride is still Dottie is a young guy who could get better. McBride is a guy that we have under contract for an amazing value next year, and Ananobi's on a contract that still looks like a good contract going out, and we can trade both of those guys later for more assets. I think that's the argument from the Suns.
yeah. I mean, I guess, but you're gonna end up with. So again, let's just say they're terrible. They're not going to swap in 26 or 28, maybe in 30. And then you get whatever, a handful of picks. You get, I wouldn't trust the Suns to be able to trade for any first round picks. So, um, I
With
mean,
Booker's
get two for
extension,
Ananobi.
with
Yeah,
Booker's extension, you have to question how much that you can get from that. And if he had not as good a year this last year, and if he
true.
again this year has a down year, now technically again we traded on January 10th, but if he has
Right.
another down year, uh,
Yeah.
you may not be able to trade him. You may be totally locked in to him in a contract that you really don't want. So I do see some value in being off Booker and having Ananobi and McBride that I think are less likely to fall off a cliff in
I
terms of their
do
trade.
think, I mean, I do think they need to trade him.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure. And I guess your point is well taken, right? That Booker contract is worth worse than Ananobi's. I just think you saw what the Magic gave up for Desmond Bain, and I know different situations. I just really would want picks if I was a Suns front
sure.
office
And they did.
from your side. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. They just didn't do a good enough job of it. I guess would be
And well,
my take as a Suns fan.
yeah, yeah. The other thing that happened that's not listed here is that Devin Booker has a trade bonus. And in order to make it work financially for us, we needed them to waive that trade bonus. He did not have representation. So again, this is like 15, maybe 10, probably 15 minutes left. We request the moderator to give us trade representation for Booker, and he gets assigned to the team that also represented Amir Coffey that we had made the deal with earlier, and then he ends up going and signing elsewhere. So I just walked over to them. I was like, guys, I need a favor. And you could just see right away, they're like, we're going to have to say yes to this. And so I'm like, I need him to waive his trade bonus. And you can see they're like, I'm agreeing to give away my client's money. That's maybe something I'm pretty worried about doing. I just said, look, he's going to move from Phoenix. I know he loves Phoenix, but he's going to go to a championship team. He gets to play with his best friend in the league, Carl Anthony Towns. Like, this is something that if you were really representing Devin Booker, he would say yes to. And they took maybe 30 seconds to a minute to think about it. And they're like, yeah, if you know what, for you, we're going to do it. The other fun part of this is to because this is really two separate trades, the Suns and the Knicks and the Suns and the Raptors. Something
Yeah.
needed to be exchanged between the Knicks and the Raptors. So I asked the Raptors, can you just throw in cash? Right? You got to throw in $1.1 million cash. That's to meet the touch requirement, right?
Hmm.
And the one guy's like, I guess sure. And the other guy's like, our owner really wouldn't like that. I was like, your owner is a fake person. Like they don't. He's like, the Raptors wouldn't do that. They're cheap. He's like, I like the Raptors. They wouldn't do that. I'm like, oh my god. So we went and looked if they have draft rights to anyone. They only have draft rights to one player. His name is DeAndre Hullett. So we included the draft rights to DeAndre Hullett in this trade. And actually, the league office rejected that and said that that was not a reasonable person to trade. So they made us do whichever pick that we don't get in the Raptors Knicks one. The Raptors are going to send that second round pick over to Phoenix. But just as a fun aside,
That is
so
fun.
DeAndre Hullett is a retired basketball player, and that is
He's
why
34.
yes, that is why we were not allowed to trade him. Is he would not reasonably ever play. He played at the College of the Sequoias, and then in for the Las Vegas Silver Bullets of the International Basketball League, and was selected, funny enough, by the Raptors, right, in the second round in the 2000 draft. And they've held his draft rights for 25 years without ever doing
Wow.
anything. So just if you can be on the lookout, I'm interested in this DeAndre Hullett signed rookie card from 2000 that lists his 1 year of professional basketball from the Las Vegas Silver Bullets and his Central Valley MVP at College of the Sequoias. So a lot of
Amazing.
people had a laugh about that one. Ended up being rejected, but so that's where we finished at. So now let's just close up. I know we've spent a long time on this. Thank you for all your time. It's really been fun for me. I hope for you. Um,
Yeah.
so I felt like we did a lot. Like I said, I slept about 25 hours over the course of 6 nights negotiating these things, and we sprinted through this thing. Um, I will say that I don't have any images to say. We now gave up 4 players but got 3 back, so we were 1 short, and so we needed one more player. Now this was probably a spot that we could have said we're going to figure it out because we actually created a little bit of cap space for ourselves as well. So we could have signed someone else at the minimum. We could have probably said, we're going to fill out that roster spot with someone else before um, the deadline to sign people that could be eligible for the playoff roster. We didn't
Hmm.
quite realize. So there were people on our team and people, including myself, and people on the Raptors that were sprinting around the room in the last 10 minutes trying to find someone that would sign with us because we thought that the trade depended on us being able to fill out our roster. They were trying to find AJ Lawson, who they had waived early in the season. The problem was it was very confusing to try to explain to agents that we were trying to sign someone to a minimum starting in January, right? And they were like, "Why would we do that? We want to sign now." It's like because you haven't signed now, and in 10 minutes you're out of the NBA. So we were trying to find like Landry Shamet, who we had requested representation for to bring back. Interestingly, that's probably the favorite for the Knicks to fill out this last roster spot. It seems like in real life. Uh, the last thing we ended up doing just to fill it out was we converted James Najee, who was on our 2 way to a regular spot. So that was the last thing we did. Probably if I had it to do over, I wouldn't have done that conversion. I just would have said we're going to go find someone else on the secondary market. Okay, so this is where we ended up after all of the moves that we made, and I got kind of mixed results from people. Like a lot of people said, like you guys killed it. But then I had another person say like it was a good negotiation on the deal, but I still wouldn't have done it. Like he didn't like where we ended up at. So when you're looking, I think probably this year, as we talked about the East being down, this year might be the best year that the Knicks have to compete. But either for this year or kind of the next 2 to 3 years, does this roster give us a better chance to win a championship than kind of what we had before we did the deal? What would you think?
Yeah. I have to say, I think if I recall correctly, my initial reaction to this when I first heard this, what you did was pretty positive. I think the more I have looked at it, the more I think I maybe have concerns. you have Booker, who adds another like a proven scorer, right? This team kind of had one go-to scoring guy. Maybe you get a Carl Anthony Towns gets really hot game,
Yeah,
and
and
hopes
that's one of the
someone else.
things that we identified at the beginning is like the workload on Brunson was extremely heavy, and we bring Mike Brown in, and we hope that he can use Mikal Bridges and Carl Anthony Towns in different ways that kind of bring them into the offense. But you do get someone who's a proven scorer in Devin Booker. That was kind of the advantage of that.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think it just leaves you weak at center. You had Robinson was finishing a lot of games, I believe, in the playoffs for the Knicks. And granted, different coach, they might have different styles, but I think like Oso has not really shown any defensive ability as a Sun. Towns, I think, is kind of a liability and guaranteed to make a bonehead play or two every series. So I think
Yeah,
some shortage there.
I think Robinson was finishing defensively. I think you might look and you say maybe on defensive position possessions at the end of games, maybe even Jalen Brunson is out. Do you can we? And again, that's where I said maybe we could pick one more person off the market after we make this trade or after buyouts. If you could get a center that could just finish defensive possessions for you, and you go offense defense, maybe that's something that you could look at doing. But I agree with you. The defensive questions are certainly the reason that this doesn't look maybe as good as some of the other championship level rosters.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're taking a swing at it, and you have Fleming, who might end up being able to guard at least 2 through 4, but maybe 1 through 5. I don't know. He might be a little too thin to bang with centers, but there's potential to maybe go small. There's some interesting things you can do, and like we've said, this is a really weak year in the East. But I don't know. I'm thinking a lot about what if you end up playing Giannis in the playoffs and who's going to guard him.
Yeah, this is and I think going just generally defensively, I think we are hoping that Booker can defend up a little bit right now, not in position, but there's better defensively than he's been the last couple of years. I think we've seen when he's engaged. You look at like Team USA or the year that they went to the finals. He's a serviceable defender, but it is the Brunson Towns pairing that really gives you a little bit of pause. Yeah, you're hoping that. Um, that one of the guys in the Fleming, Yabusele, Huckporty, Iguodaro take a leap a little bit defensively. I think during the regular season, I love the optionality that we have here. We can play a lot of different kinds of minutes, and it'll get us through the regular season. But it is the playoffs, and you're right. Giannis is an awful matchup.
Yeah, he's a bad matchup for anyone too, and
I'm a little less worried about Milwaukee because I just think the cast around Giannis is really not very good. And in
mhm.
this exercise, Giannis got traded to the Western Conference anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. Except maybe in the finals against Houston. But what about Cleveland or Orlando as a matchup?
Yeah. Let's see. I guess Cleveland seems probably more manageable. Most of their scoring comes from their guards.
Yeah,
Um, they have good big men, but they're not like explosive scorers. So I think you can kind of get away with that. Mikal
yeah,
can guard bigger guys that aren't super heavy. So I think that's probably a good matchup. Orlando, probably all right as well, honestly. And like you said, maybe a bigger threat. They
Orlando
do have
scares me
some size on the wings.
a little bit more.
Yeah,
Bankero maybe is a tough cover for this group.
yeah. You maybe don't have anyone thick enough to go against him. I mean, he's really strong. Um, but I don't know. It's the type of thing where also then you just hope and you got to figure out the matchups over, and you got to watch over the course of the season, figure out how to stop him.
Yeah, and if they make the finals, I think you're certainly a large underdog against Oklahoma City. I I think actually Karl Anthony Towns did an okay job against Jokic 2 years ago, so uh, that's maybe not the worst of matchups. And Houston, who knows what it would look like when they come there. But yeah, I think it's an interesting question. You look at this team and feel like it's at least a real threat to make the finals. I guess you could argue that with the roster we had before the trade as well. But we felt pretty good about what we were able to do given kind of a limited flexibility, both around the cap and pick wise. And I like where we ended up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good swing. You know, I think the Suns gave it a try. I think you are as well with less redundancy and overlap, right? Like you've constructed a better roster in adding another star to this team that the Suns didn't do. So if anything, you probably deserve more credit than them. So I think nicely done. And we'll have to see how the season plays out.
Right. So I will say there was also just an interest in this from me, from my side. That as a Wildcat, I really do enjoy this starting lineup of all Wildcats
Love it.
representing two college teams. So that was a fun part that we got to do as well. So thank you very much, Frank, for talking
Yeah.
this all the way through. I'm curious, any final thoughts on the program, on kind of this exercise that we got to do? What do you think?
It's really fun. I would love to, because I'm having a kid and probably won't be doing anything next summer. But if they're looking for someone who has no experience to be on a non-alumni team, that sounds like it'd be really fun to do this. I mean, it's really cool. It's a brilliant idea. Um, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to find out a way to carve the time out. But I think it's really cool to have that. And I think, like you've also mentioned, the like the continuing Discord community too. It just seems really fun.
It has been amazing. I would suggest it if you can do it. You know, it's not cheap, and you got to give up find a week to be able to do it. I should say, maybe most of the people were younger, either in college or freshly out of college, but there was a good 30%, maybe more, maybe a third of people that were professionals working in a different industry that were there. So there is a mix. I think it's something worth
Yeah.
doing. So yeah, thank you very much. That was really a fun experience for me to get to walk you through it and get feedback on it. I hope other people enjoyed it as well. On behalf of Dr. Frank, I'm Chris Sutter. You can follow me on X or Blue Sky at Utter Hoops. Follow that, subscribe to that Substack, substack.utterhoops.com, or follow our YouTube channel, Utter Hoops. All right. Thank you all, and I'll catch you next time.